And then when I got a job as a film curator. That was the first part of what I got out in Honolulu at the Honolulu Museum of Art. And I started to explore this genre and started to watch films. And I decided that I wanted to start this Bollywood Film Festival. And there was somebody on our board named Indru Wadamal, who was the board president, and she was, of course, Indian. And she helped me a little bit. And I worked with a lot of people who were knowledgeable at first about Bollywood films, and started researching and did the first Bollywood Film Festival there. So the first year, it was, well attended, but not overly well attended. And what was interesting to me was how very few people in the Indian community showed up, and how the people who showed up were a Japanese American, from Hawaii, and then, Caucasian, and lots of other people, but no one who was Indian. And the reason is that they've already seen the films. Mm-hmm. They have access to copies, or probably pirated copies, sometimes not, but they have ways of getting the films or seeing the films in India. So they just weren't as interested in coming to see the films. But what was really amazing to me was to find out that in some theaters, at least during that time period, which was, in 2006 up to about 2010, that some films would play in theaters for like 5 years. It would be the same film. And as I said to the audience, people would go see the films because for a lot of people who were living in poverty, they could get enough money to go see a film and just escape and get out of the heat. And it was 3 hours long, and maybe get something to eat there. And it was just this way of escaping the misery of their lives, which really was interesting to me because there's a direct connection between the MGM musicals of the 1950s. They borrow a lot, especially early Bollywood films. There were a lot of codes at that time, from the 40s up until most recently. You would never see people even kissing on screen.
Right.
And there was, maybe there was really sexy dancing, which was really weird. The dancing was always really sexy, but like no kissing allowed, no even references to sex. But there were sort of maybe, it's the same kind of thing that we had back in the 50s and 40s up until like, the late 60s. There were innuendos and things like that. So they had that. And the films are really romantic. And so that period of time between the 90s up until really about 2006-07, the films were that kind of film. And they had their major stars, like Shah Rukh Khan, who's like one of the most famous stars from that period. And they would act in all the films. And in fact, like the singing that you would hear in those early Bollywood films, the singing was done by like about 3 people. Mm-hmm. So the acting, the singing, all of it was, all of this was on the shoulders of just a small group of people who were extremely famous because millions and millions and millions and millions of people would see these films. More people see Bollywood than Hollywood, and people don't realize that. Mm-hmm. And but Hollywood makes more money,
right? Because
it's American, it's big budget. We put so much money into it. So that was also really interesting to me that they made these really. I mean, the films are, as you see, they're long, they're big budget, they're well edited, the colors are amazing.
What makes you want to bring it to Baltimore?
And that's a good question. I love the film so much that I thought, well, let's see how the Baltimore market how it will do in the Baltimore market. And plus, it's just so, these films are so fabulous, Baltimore should experience them, and I want to introduce them to Baltimore. I think that people would enjoy them. Mm-hmm. And some people kind of are familiar, they've seen Slumdog Millionaire, so they have some idea that that's sort of a Bollywood film, or they've seen clips of it. But very few people that I've met here have actually seen Bollywood films. And after the film, I talked to some people afterwards, and they were like, this is the first time I've seen a Bollywood film. Mm-hmm. So I feel like I should introduce this genre because it's fun, it's summer.
Did you have a problem of trying to determine which ones to bring to Creative Alliance Film?
I didn't, because the person who ended up, after I left Honolulu and came back here, and the person we had hired to take my position, she continued the Bollywood Film Festival there because it was so popular. There, people would line up around the block.
Now I'm talking about introducing it here to
Well,
Baltimore.
introducing it here wasn't really a problem because what I did was I contacted her because she had my film festival committee. She just absorbed them and continued it. So I said, Abby Algar, who runs it there, I said, what are the good films there? What went over really well? And so the two films that I brought here were the two favorites from that festival.
I see.
So that saved me a lot of time.
So have you been encouraged by what you get in terms of reception?
I have been. I thought that was I thought that the audience, it was very interactive. I thought they really enjoyed it. I thought that they were very excited by this film, and I think they'll come back for the second one, Lutera, which is based on an O. Henry story called The Leaf.
Oh, so when is that going to be?
Okay, so that, we'll need to redo this on tape. That's in August.
Okay.
That's one of the last Thursdays in August.
Well, how come you only show it one time? You know, are you going to show the same film for any period of time? Like in a regular movie, they would show it over the weekend
Yeah,
a couple
we
of
would
times.
show it
How,
for-
you only showed it once.
Oh, that's a good question. It's because we are predominantly a performance venue with a small film program, so we only have one screening per film.
Okay.
So unfortunately, that's true. So for the next one, if people are really getting excited about it, they better get their tickets. They better buy them online because I felt the reception was, and I don't know what you felt, but for me, because I sit in with the audience a lot,
Right.
and I felt like the audience loved the film. Like they were laughing and they were, really emoting during the festival.
Let me ask you about the Indian community in Baltimore. Is Creative Alliance making any attempts to reach out to them?
Yeah, we went and we brought postcards to all the Indian restaurants.
Okay.
We contacted the hospitals where we know that there are, is an educated class of Indians, but still, doesn't matter, I was working with an educated class of Indians, professors and so forth, and they liked, a couple of them eventually started to come to the Bollywood Film Festival. After about 5 years of doing it, they started to come because they heard that there was such a reception that they wanted to come and enjoy that, So they would, a small group of people would end up coming. But, yeah. We really reached out. We reached out to a Bollywood meetup group. I mean, there's a Bollywood meetup group here in Baltimore. So we reached out to all of these organizations, and I think if you looked at the audience, there, not to my knowledge, was there anyone who was Indian.
Have you ever thought of, when you have a Bollywood film, to have at the Marquee Lounge any type of Indian food? So that then you have a break at intermission to go and actually taste that.
We had talked about that, but it didn't happen. So maybe we can get them to do it for this next one. I'll say that you suggested it.
And as you very well know, I'm sure you do, that the Indian cuisine is almost in some ways similar to the community that is primarily around Creative Alliance, which would be the Hispanic community.
Yeah, there's some
they tend to
similarities.
have some similarities there.
Spicy food,
Right.
some, there's certain things that tortillas are similar to.
And Baltimore is going through a transition in terms of eating habits and expanding their taste buds into other kinds of foods too.
Isn't that great? Yeah.
Well, I wish you all the best in the upcoming Bollywood
and I
films.
hope that you will come to the next one.
I hope so too.
We expect you to be here.
But thank you, Gina.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.